say again, like Zoe said, AAPI community has always faced hate and unfair treatment. The pandemic has just amplified it. It takes some pressure for me to start sharing and open it up about my own experience, but I'm going for it. In 2019, the third year after I came here to the United States, the COVID pandemic started in my hometown, in my home country. My family health was severely stressed, but my worries were ignored and even taunted at the time because COVID was not a thing here. My flight home was canceled without a choice. Starting from the spring of 2020, the school halted. In the beginning, there were limited options in campus dining for vegan. On my few trips to the grocery store down the street, there were people staring at me, spitting next to me, or shouted, "Go back to China," from their car. Someone dumped in trash in a Chinese flag in the language suite in Lu's Hall. Nevertheless, my dearest cousin studying in New Jersey was physically attacked. We were Chinese virus. There were Wuhan flu. I lost, with sorrow, insecurity, fear, worries, homesickness, imposed guilt, hopelessness, anxiety. I lost 22% of my body mass in 2 months. My lowest weight record was 76 pounds. I thought there was something wrong with my balance, but there was something wrong with me. Panic attack and fainting haunted. I cried alone sometime in bed, saying I don't want to be here. I don't belong here. I want to be home. I was severely depressed, though I was able to flourish again during the summer with faith and love from my dearest Worcester host family, the Hemmings. This country has beautiful lies about equality and freedom. Back then, I chose silence to avoid conflict. Now silence is not a choice anymore. The Atlanta shooting 10 days ago and the spike of thousands of hate-fueled attacks against the AAPI community is painful, frustrating, and unacceptable. It exposed the fact of unfair treatment of Asian community, and the fact is, like Zoe said, over 3,800 incidents were reported in the past 1 year. An 89-year-old woman set on fire, Tadaka Wuno, a professional jazz pianist beaten so badly that he can no longer play the piano. Vika Ratana Paki, murdered. Pak Ho, murdered. This is not the first time that AAPI is blamed for a disease. Another example is the plague outbreak in San Francisco in 1900s. Just because the first person to die of plague was Chinese American, they were blamed for the outbreak, even though the disease was aborted from an Asian Australia ship. Outside of disease blaming, American is no stranger of anti-Asian racism. In 1882, Chinese Exclusion Act banned The Chinese Exclusion Act banned Chinese immigration for 10 years. Even after that, there were many restrictions for guidelines for Chinese Americans and international who want to enter the United States. Around the same time, 120,000 Japanese Americans were forced in the internment camp. There is a threat of death to 23 million of AAPI community, now lasting. 1.1 million international students from Asia, and 11% of faculty and professors who are identified with Asian origin. Some of us in the United States come with a choice as global citizens. Some just feel more and more like a foreigner in their own country. When you see the polling result of elections broken down by race, Asian Americans are rarely listed as a separated category because Asian Americans are considered statistically insignificant. It literally means that this group does not matter. So we know the hurdles here. The question is, how do we fix it or do about it? I don't have the perfect answer, but I know what works. The general approach is in the Bible. Love your neighbor and follow the golden rule. First, know us specifically, know us as people, instead of tag a virus or a calculator, because we are good at math. This can be started by spending a little bit time to talk about anyone around you and try learning the pronunciation of names. Please acknowledge that they don't have to be unconfident with their language. Don't hesitate also to point out cultural differences, but with just a little bit less judgmental statement. For this country, one of the places to start is education. Let's teach AAPI everything, including them, in the nation's pride. How about we teach them about, the most decorated combat unit in the United States military history was the 442nd Combat Team in World War II that made up entirely of Asian Americans. These are not Asian American history. This is American history that should not be erased from the history book and replaced entirely with how Asians and Americans were forced to labor or suffer to death for that tiny bit of gold in sand. Also, hate crime should be considered, responded, and reported seriously. The government and the public must improve the data collection and reliable report for hate crime. The public should provide counseling for those convicted of hate crimes and an infrastructure that make it easier for those who English is not the first language, and stop arresting people who are fighting against voter suppression. Voting rights at least, freedom at least. Excuse me again. Now that I'm leaving the United States in 2 weeks and graduating in 40 days, I'm speaking into the community not to blame anyone or this country, but with deep love, appreciation, and hope. Despite how much I was crushed physically and mentally, I love the people in the United States, side by side with them and all of you. My 5-year experience in the country has been great. I am blessed. I am ambitiously praying for better experience for millions of other Asian people, other non-white people who call the United States home or the second home like I do. I pray for no more toxic rhetoric of targeting and scapegoating toward the Asian community. I pray for Asian and AAPI will have no more fear of being violently pushed, slashed, or murdered. I pray for them to be encouraged, hugged, supervised, taught, listened to, and counseled like what I have richly received. I pray for all non-white people to be seen, heard, understood, treated equally, and walk reckless one day on the street, on the land where they called home. Even though we face extreme difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have that common dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream one day, not only this nation, but the world will rise up and live out of the true meaning of its creed. We hold this truth to be self-evident, and all people are created equal. I dream for an ever better place, where regardless of our appearance, age, gender, regardless of our belief, culture, and identity, we have equal voice. We have equal access to opportunities. In closing, there are several moments in the country's history that chart for its course indelibly for the future. For Asian, for AAPI, that moment is right now. We are united, we are waking up, and we are no more silent. Thank you.
No matter if you're a student, faculty, staff outside of the College of Worcester would like to come up and say something, we have hand sanitizer and wipes for you to take the megaphone, and this is your free stage. Otherwise, you're welcome to depart. Please don't forget about the candles if you would like to return them to Lowry. And yeah, thank you all again for coming. We really appreciate you all being here today. I know it's a Friday, so thank you all for coming.
Hello. Hi, my name is Mochi Meadows. I am a freshman at the College of Worcester. I'm from San Francisco, California. Bay Area, anyone? I am an Asian American student. And honestly, this has been a really rough time for me. Being thousands of miles away from home and just opening Instagram and just scrolling down my feed, seeing slashings, beatings, pushings, robberies, just one after another, and I just stand there and I pray that the next post isn't my grandma. And it hurts so much to say I hate a pandemic that put her in this situation. But I'm so thankful for a pandemic that won't let her leave her house so that she will not be targeted just for looking the way she does. My grandma spent 2 years of her childhood in an internment camp. My great uncle, born in the internment camp. And this narrative of assimilation that America has pushed on the Asian American community since day one is still continuing to this day. And it is disgusting, and it is full of hate. My great-grandma is so scared to talk out of turn because up until her death, she would not say anything bad about America. When they got out of the internment camp, they would not speak out against it, because when they had to go from California to Rower into an internment camp and out to Jersey, working for basically pennies to feed an entire family, one word against it, against the systematic injustice, means you lose your livelihood, and you lose your life. And I'm tired of seeing this. This has been going on my entire life. And in the recent months, there has been a rise in hate crimes. And honestly, although I love my Worcester community, I'm tired of seeing this performative justice. I thank you all for coming out here today, for taking a stand with us, for rising up with us, and saying, we will stand this no more. Thank you very much for coming out here. It means a lot for me, my family, and just my general community. Thank you.